Well, we continue to try to make sense of the Ravens' 1-3 start to the season. Let's turn to someone we always like catching up with. We'll go across the pond where perhaps he's still celebrating a Ryder Cup victory. I'm not sure. He is the director of media strategy for PFF. He is our friend Gordon McGuinness, and he's with us again this morning here on GCR. Gordon, it's Glenn. I appreciate it. I promise I'm not going to try to start like an FU Gordon McGuinness chant the way that everybody in New York was. I promise that's not going to happen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Gordon, let's peel the Band-Aid off. Why is Derrick Henry not getting the football? How do we make sense of that at all?
I think it's one of those situations where, and we've seen this happen with the Ravens before, like they get themselves into situations whereby it's not as advantageous to run the football. That being said, like I have looked into some of the stuff, and there are even situations where he should be on the field. It would make sense. Like I looked yesterday at, now it's a small sample size. It's like
Mm-hmm.
11 plays where it's been third or fourth down, 1 or 2 yards to go. And of those 11 plays, Derrick Henry's on the field for 6 plays. Justice Hill's on the field for 5 of those plays. And like when Henry's on the field, it's like a mix of run and pass. When Justice Hill's on the field, it's like much more heavily weighted towards passing the ball. Obviously, they believe in Justice Hill as the receiving back, but when I look at that, like I think in short yarded situations, I would want to put the opposing defense, in particular the linebackers, into a bind whereby they have to worry about both Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. And the Ravens right just now aren't just doing that.
Is part of this, Gordon, that they have less trust in the offensive line to commit to running in short yardage situations, and they almost feel like they have to lean towards pass plays and get Lamar out of the pocket in those situations.
I think that's very possible. And I think the offensive line issues, like particularly the first 2 weeks of the season, I think probably have a lot of explain a lot of the blame for the struggles of the offense the last couple of weeks. Like a lot of the problems in the passing game, whereby I think Lamar Jackson's been at fault for a lot of his pressure and sacks in the last 2 games. But I think you can actually explain that away by saying, well, those first 2 weeks of the season, of course he's going to have his takeaway be that I can't really trust this offensive line, in particular the interior. There's too much pressure coming, and similar in the running game, they're not getting the same push that they were before. So I think it potentially has impacted the decision making from a coaching perspective, and then also on a player perspective as well.
Is it anything as far as the offensive line is concerned? Who's performing well right now, Gordon? Like, I think we believe that Tyler Linderbaum is performing well. If Ronnie Stanley is on the field, I think we believe he's performing well. One, is that true? And two, is anybody else performing well? And who is performing most poorly that like it really is time to think about whether or not anything is a better option?
I think as long as he's on the field, I think Ronnie Stanley has been their best overall offensive lineman. Um, Tyler Linderbaum, outside of a handful of plays in pass protection where he struggled, and I think it's been mainly on stunts. He's been fine. He's been good in the running game. He's their highest graded run blocker for us. The issue is mainly the two interior spots, and Daniel Falalele is such an interesting case study because his pass blocking grade's technically the highest of the Ravens offensive linemen,
Sure.
but he also just has plays whereby like his lows are incredibly low and his worst plays look really bad. They're always the most highlight worthy. I think the biggest issue up until this week was Andrew Voorhees at left guard, which is actually similar to what the situation was at the start of last year when they kind of changed things up. He had probably his best game of the season this past week though, so there is possibly a case to be made that he's starting to turn the corner a little bit there. The other tough thing is I don't know that they necessarily have anyone that they can turn to, and it's not. This isn't a Raven specific problem.
Right.
There aren't 5 times 32 good offensive linemen throughout the NFL, and it means anytime. My ex-colleague Sam Monson had a tweet earlier this week that some of the offensive line guys engaged with and agreed with. there's not really a great way for developing offensive linemen unless they're getting playing time. And I think you see that be an issue.
I know a few of the. I saw that tweet from Sam, and I know a few of the offensive linemen said, "Well, this is where the changes to the preseason and the offseason have most hurt. Is that the only way to develop is to be out there in pads hitting every day, twice a day, and you're just never going to get that again. So we'll see what the impact is." Gordon McGuinness is with us from PFF here on GCR. Gordon, let me touch on a few other things. How bad has it been for Marlon Humphrey when he's been on the field? Because we've seen the grades and we've seen the plays, and he's just looked lost. I'm still not ready to do the hey, maybe it's addition by subtraction thing, since Marlon looks like he's going to be sidelined at least through the bye. But it's been pretty glaring how much teams have been willing to throw in his direction.
Yeah, and I think the bigger thing has been like after the catch is made, he's been really poor at the tackle point. I was watching through because I kind of had a similar hypothesis to your thing there around. I was thinking about the injuries they have, and I started thinking about like who's the easiest to replace. And Keon Martin actually played okay when he came on the field on Sunday there. So I then like watched through the plays, and Marlon Humphrey's still covering guys closely. I think the biggest issue has been once the guy makes the catch, he's missed tackles, and he's not performing as well as he has in the past in general in coverage. But I think the bigger issue has been the tackling thing. So that's something that I think they were going to have to try and address anyway to fix that, because it's just not sustainable for them to continue down that route. So yeah, I don't know quite if it's addition by subtraction. You might get a slightly different problem with Keon Martin, whereby he's not missing as many tackles, but isn't necessarily as close in coverage and maybe allows some of those softer receptions to be made.
I wonder if they finally turn back to Jair Alexander, but the fact that they've been unwilling to even have him active for the last 3 weeks is kind of glaring about what that might be if that's the direction they go. Particularly if Nate Wiggins is also going to be out for a little bit here. Have there been any Griffin and I have had this both the last 2 weeks where we walked in here and we said, say something nice about the Ravens defense. Say anything that you think. And like in the Lions game, at least Nate Wiggins made a play, right? Like he at least had a pass breakup where you're like, oh yeah, there was a play there. I'm daring you, Gordon McGuinness. Tell me something positive. Is there anything that you have seen defensively? Because it looks to me like unmitigated disaster. Like there's absolutely no reason to think that when everybody keeps talking about how, hey, the schedule gets, easier, I don't know who wouldn't be gashing this defense at the moment, because there's no one, save for maybe Kyle Hamilton, that I think is playing even solid football at the moment.
The only, and it's a two very small positives that I would have right now is one, I think Malachi Starks had his best game as a pro this past week.
Okay.
So first 3 weeks for him, there was probably a little bit more bad than good. Wasn't like the struggles that some of the guys in the defense had. This past week, I thought was his strongest out, and it was his highest graded game of his career so far. I also think if you think about the outside cornerback position, in the very limited amount of time he's been on the field this season, TJ Tampa has actually looked okay for the Ravens. So, like the tough thing for them is how they think about that in terms of it probably helps them while Nate Wiggins is out. That if Jair Alexander isn't ready to be on the field yet, if that's what the issue is there, then Tampa has at least looked solid enough when he's been out there. So maybe they have some flexibility there. Tough thing is it doesn't massively help them in the slot if Marlon
Right.
Humphrey's play is going to continue to be a problem when he's healthy, if Keon Martin can't really improve things there, because neither Jair Alexander or Nate Wiggins
Is
are
a slot,
necessarily
yeah.
slot cornerbacks.
No, that's a very fair point. I guess the other part of this conversation with TJ Tampa is like, but how much of that is if he's the guy that's out there playing outside corner, that teams are going to go into a week and say, yeah, we don't really care that he's looked okay. We're just going to throw the ball in his direction every time and test him and see how that plays out.
Yeah, exactly. Like his sample size of looking okay is very, very small, right? He's been on
Yeah.
the field for like 41 snaps this season. So um, it's something that I don't think you would have necessarily a huge amount of confidence in. It's just it's one of the few small positives that I think I've been able to glean so far.
Can this be fixed by something that can be done, Gordon? And I asked that question to say, like, how much of this we heard Kyle Hamilton. Obviously everybody obsessed over the spoiled part, but it felt like the point that he was trying to make then was that this isn't really about Zach Orr. This is about us, and we haven't been good enough. A lot of people have the opinion of you get to the bye week and the defense still looks this bad. You have to change who your defensive play caller is. You have to put somebody else out there. The other opinion would be Nnamdi Madubuike, we know, is at least out for the season now. You have to be looking to make a trade for legitimate help up front, whether that's a defensive tackle, whether that's an edge. You have to improve up front. Is it so bad that even like one of these things, there's no reason to think it's going to get all that much better? Or is that still in the realm of possibility that you might have to do something like that in the coming weeks?
I think heading into this week against the Chiefs, I was very much of the opinion, one, that like this is solvable because they solved it last year, right? The struggles they're having on defense are really not that dissimilar to what they
But our
had.
Darius Washington isn't walking through that door, Gordon McGuinness.
Exactly, right? That things like that definitely make an impact. And I was very much in favor of go out and ask the question of the New York Giants, go out and ask the question of the New York Jets, go out and ask the question of the Tennessee Titans. Is Jeffrey Simmons, is Dexter Lawrence, is Quinn Williams available for a trade? Because
Mm-hmm.
especially with Madubuike out in the middle of that defensive line, they need a playmaker there, and they need someone who can both help against the run and as a pass rusher. The biggest concern I would have now is the injuries they suffered this past week are so substantial that there is a world whereby they come out in the next 2 weeks 1-5.
Right.
At which point, I don't know how aggressive you can be in the trade market if it's like a short term move. Now, if you go and get a Quinn and Williams, you're thinking long term, and that would maybe play into how likely it is that Madubuike is back for the Ravens at any
Sure.
point in the future
Sure.
beyond this season. But we're a couple of weeks away from this becoming a lost season for the Ravens, at which point I don't know how aggressive you want to be in the trade market at that point.
No, I completely understand that. What about like the play calling, and what about the idea that again, I think the argument might be, hey, who cares who calls plays if you get to 1-5? Who cares what anything does? But like, is there an argument? Say they split these games, they're sitting at 2-4, they're not out of it, but the defense is still atrocious. That you just need to let somebody else attempt to call plays because this isn't working.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and regardless, even if you're effectively kind of punting on the season at 1-5, like you still have to make moves that show the players that there's accountability. And if the defense isn't getting it done after the next 2 weeks, then I think it's going to be really hard for them to not make any kind of change there.
Yeah.
Even if it is, a Chuck Pagano taking over the defensive play calling or something like that.
I completely agree. It was interesting that the ire from John Harbaugh seemed to be more directed towards Todd Monken, and again, going back to how we started this conversation, understandably so. I just don't think we can compare the offense isn't the problem that the defense is, unless Cooper Rush is playing for the next few weeks, and then my God, it just might be everything. Like we
Yeah.
might be Katie bar the door time at that point, Gordy.
Yeah, I mean, if Lamar Jackson is out for any period of time, then I think it then becomes no. Well, put it this way, I think at that point, I don't think fans would have to worry about them not running the football because if Cooper Rush is starting at quarterback for them, I think we can expect probably at least 25 handoffs to Derrick Henry.
Actually, at that point, we might be looking at the old the Wildcat, like
Yeah,
Derrick
exactly.
Henry, just direct snap him the ball, get another blocker on the field somehow, and pray for the best at that point. My God, remember when the Ravens were the best team in football, and remember when they had the greatest roster ever assembled? And oh, it has been a month. Gordon, what can we plug for you? What can we plug for PFF?
Yeah, I mean, just it's that time of year, just pff.com. We're about to launch our team of the first quarter. I wouldn't expect too many Ravens to feature in that, but
No.
there might be a couple of guys that at least make the second team there. Um, And yeah, just any support for people going to the website is always appreciated.
Oh man, yeah, like maybe Zay Flowers. I guess. I guess we could say he's been decent to start this season. I'm not sure who else. At PFF_Gordon is how you follow him. Gordon McGuinness. Always appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.